Kerry, you wanted to tell the people about this condition that you're seeing that they may not be aware of.
Yeah, so I'm working with what we are working with a group of vets who have a condition called inclusion body myositis.
Or IBM, is that really what they
IB,
call it in review? Inclusion, mile, body.
inclusion body myositis. I think IBM, like the computer, or I guess no,
But it helps.
they don't make computers anymore. I don't know. But IBM, inclusion body myositis. And trust me, if you have this disease, you very likely know it.
What are the symptoms?
Well, this is uh, like ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. All right, it's generally just as deadly as Lou Gehrig's disease, except its debilitation and eventual end result takes a lot longer than Lou Gehrig's disease. So that's the difference. It's like ALS, but much slower. Okay. Throughout a person's lifetime that has this disease over the course of a couple of decades, they will start, they'll start getting weakness in their legs, weakness in their arms. They will eventually lose complete use of their legs. They will eventually lose complete use of their arms. They will suffer dysphagia and paralysis of the esophagus and lots of bad things. Okay, it's very very debilitating. That's what I'm saying. If you have it, you likely know it already. Um, we
And why
are
is it service connected?
Here's what we think. Okay? And this is our approach, and this is the group's approach, is that whatever is causing ALS, for
Mhm.
those of you that don't know, ALS is presumptive. In other words, you're entitled to presumptive service connection if you have 90 days or more of active duty and you come down with ALS.
So what,
That
what that means, everybody, is if you're in the military 90 days and you get ALS, you are service connected, you are covered. You don't have to prove anything else.
so and it's always going to be rated 100%. It's a terminal illness. Obviously, no one wants to get diagnosed with that. Um, but the reason that come about is because, and I won't go over the whole story, but VA found through researching other things that people with ALS, that veterans were being diagnosed with ALS at a higher clip than the civilian population. Okay. And they could not narrow that down to any specific exposure. And they still cannot. Right? So
Mm.
they don't know if it's stress, if it's, what's a common exposure, gunpowder maybe at the rifle range, that's applicable to all veterans. So because they could not narrow down, like we know it's Gulf War veterans that are being diagnosed. We know it's just Vietnam. It's all veterans. The same thing seems to be happening to this disease, IBM, inclusion body myositis. It is more or less genetically identical to ALS, right? Uh, a- and I'm not going to get into the science behind that, 'cause I'd be speaking on a term, but just in layman's terms, it is basically genetically identical to ALS. The medical experts in the country that specialize in this disease believe themselves that whatever is the general cause for ALS is also the general cause for IBM.
Mhm.
IBM is not presumptive for veterans. So these are fought on a direct basis. Here's what we know. We know there's about 1,700 people that have either filed claims or have claims of service connection for IBM, and I'm talking throughout the years. So we're not talking a lot of people. Um, it's a rare condition, and because of the fact that there's no presumptive, that we don't know what's causing it, getting service connection for that condition is very difficult. Um, we have decided to help this group. The reason we're sharing it on here is because we know probably of most of those 1,700 folks, one, do not know about the IBM association or the group that's sort of there to support each other, and they certainly probably don't know that we are willing to take on those claims of service connection for IBM or higher rating, because at the end stage of these claims, you're talking loss of use of all four extremities usually. They're rated very high if you can get service connection, but most of these people are not
We're
getting
talking R2, 1, R2, and
R,
just
R1, R2, depending on how far along the disease is. Like I said,
R2, right?
eventually it would be. Um, so if you have, if you happen to be one of the unfortunate folks that have this disease, and you hear this, and you don't have good representation, we are interested in those cases, um, and eventually would like to see on a presumptive basis the same as ALS. Uh, one way to do that is to keep winning them, and right now we know that's very difficult to do.
Okay, so Kerry, you have a case. In case any of you think the VA is picking on you in particular, I'd like you to hear the facts of a case. This is one of these cases that Kerry won that went on how many years, would you say? How many years before the judge made a decision favorable?
Are, which one are you talking about? The
The
IBM
one
case?
where the guy was in the sling and you had a hearing.
Yeah. So this was an IBM case. This is we won the case at the board.
What, how
It
many
wasn't
years did you had that case?
it wasn't a lengthy case simply because it was expedited on a terminal illness, so that it didn't take long as far as that goes. Uh, this gentleman was exceptionally disabled. He could only get out of his bed with a sling that rode on a track from a ceiling. That it's very, very, very disabled individual. Um, there's no doubt he had loss of use, complete loss of use, all four extremities. I mean, not even a question about it. Okay. Um, so there was no real weighing of the evidence needed. We won the case at the board. The case come back to the
This is something we never see. The judge granted that day the decision.
yeah.
It wasn't one where he had a hearing and 3 months later did something.
Oh, yeah, the judge said
That's disconnected.
during the hearing he was going to award the benefit, which I had never heard in 25 years of being board. And by the end of that week, he'd issued a decision and waived the hearing transcript. Again, 25 years, never seen it happen.
Right.
Um, and
And
and so
watch
so
what the VA did.
so so it comes back to the DROC, the Decision Review Operations Center, who implements board grants or handles board remands, and they popped out a very fast rating decision. Now, R1 was the minimum this guy was warranted. We think R2.
So our one is 100% plus all the way up to the second to the last highest SNC. It's like $9,000 a month. And they gave him
0%.
0%. That's
And
the
very next thing in the record prior to the board decision was the 2680, which was the form for aid and attendance, which explained how disabled the guy was. So it's not like this rater had to look very far in the record to figure out that this was an SMC case. Certainly not a 0% case, certainly not even just a 100% case. And they rated it 0. I figure they probably spent 2 minutes putting the rating decision together. Needless to say, I blew my freaking lid. And I tried to get it stopped. Now I can't do this with every case. You guys are listening and our clients and all this stuff.
so egregious. I mean,
But
really.
it was egregious. It was like the worst decision I'd ever seen. I went to the regional office leadership. They didn't, and asked them to pull the case back. They did not. I said, please don't send this exceptionally disabled veteran a 0% rating for his disability. The next morning, it was authorized, so meaning it was in the mail. So I then went to somebody in DC. By the end of the day, they hadn't got back to me. I told them I was going to continue to escalate it. By the end of that day, I went to the Undersecretary for Benefits, and he made sure it got fixed, and it did. The very next day, it got fixed up to the R1 rate. We're going to appeal, which I can handle. We can appeal for the R2. If that doesn't surprise me. Um, and now, you want me to go on with the whole story?
No, I just want the VA, you out there, you think you've been abused. You're not, they don't, people think, why are they picking on me? They're not. They're picking on everybody. This is awful. So
Yeah,
I
this
want
this
you to know,
and of course, they did tell us this person's gonna get retrained and this, that, this person shouldn't be rating cases. I'm sorry.
no,
And I'm the last person that wants to hurt someone's employment. But, there's lots of jobs in VA. Maybe you can go be a file clerk or something. You shouldn't be rating cases.
because
You
they're
know,
handling people's lives, and to let them just, that's just unbelievable.
uh,
Okay, Nick, or is there anything else you wanted to say about
no,
this?
no. So if you're out there and you have IBM, inclusion body myositis, and you're having trouble with the VA, please let us know. Um, and we would like to try to handle your cases for you.
Kerry's gotten experts, people who understand the science of this, um, and so he's winning these cases. We're winning these cases. So don't go, don't suffer through this with no benefits to help.
Mhm.